Fathers and Sons, also translated more literally as Fathers and Children, is an 1862 novel by Ivan Turgenev, and vies with A Nest of Gentlefolk for the repute of being his best novel. Plot: Arkady Kirsanov has just graduated from the University of Petersburg and returns with a friend, Bazarov, to his father's modest estate in an outlying province of Russia. His father, Nikolai, gladly receives the two young men at his estate, called Marino, but Nikolai's brother, Pavel, soon becomes upset by the strange new philosophy called nihilism, which the young men advocate. Nikolai, initially delighted to have his son return home, slowly begins to feel unease, and a certain awkwardness in his regard, as it emerges that Arkady's views, much influenced by Bazarov, are radical and make his own beliefs feel dated. To complicate this, the father has taken a servant, Fenichka, into his house to live with him and has already had a son by her. Arkady, however, is not troubled by the relationship. To the contrary, he openly celebrates the acquisition of a younger brother. The two young men stay over at Marino for some weeks, then decide to visit a relative of Arkady's in a neighboring province. They observe the local gentry and meet Madame Odintsova, an elegant woman of independent means, who cuts a seductively different figure from the pretentious humdrum types of her surrounding provincial society of gentry. Both are attracted to her, and she, intrigued by Bazarov's singular manner, invites them to spend a few days at her estate, Nikolsko. At Nikolsko, they also meet Katya, Madame Odintsova's sister. Although they remain for only a short period, both characters undergo significant change. The relationship with each other is especially affected, as they both find themselves drawn to Madame Odintsova. Bazarov in particular finds this distressing because falling in love runs against his nihilist beliefs. Eventually, prompted by Odintsova's own cautious expressions of attraction to him, he announces that he loves her. She does not respond overtly to his declaration, though she too is deeply drawn to Bazarov while finding his dismissal of feelings and the aesthetic side of existence troublesome. After his avowal of love, and her failure to make a similar declaration, Bazarov proceeds to his parents' home, and Arkady decides to accompany him. At Bazarov's home, they are received enthusiastically by his parents, and the traditional mothers of both father and mother, who adulate the son, are portrayed with a nostalgic, idealistic description of humble people and the fast-disappearing world of simple values and virtues. Bazarov's social cynicism, invariably on display with outsiders, drops as he settles back into his own family's ambience. Interrupting his father as he speaks to Arkady, he proves rather abrupt. Arkady, who has delighted Bazarov's father by assuring him that his son has a brilliant future in store, in turn reproves his friend for his brusqueness. Later, Bazarov almost comes to blows with Arkady after the latter makes a joke about fighting over Bazarov's cynicism. After a brief stay, much to the parents' disappointment, they decide to return to Marino, stopping on the way to see Madame Odintsova, who receives them coolly. They leave almost immediately and return to Arkady's home. Arkady remains for only a few days, and makes an excuse to leave in order to go to Nikolsko. Once there, he realizes he is not in love with Odintsova, but instead with her sister Katya. Bazarov stays at Marino to do some scientific research, and tension between him and Pavel increases. Bazarov enjoys talking with Fenichka and playing with her child, and one day he gives her a quick kiss. Pavel observes this kiss and, secretly in love with Fenichka himself, challenges Bazarov to a duel. Pavel Pavel is wounded in the leg, and Bazarov must leave Marino. He stops for an hour or so at Madame Odintsov's, then continues on to his parents' home. Meanwhile, Arkady and Katya have fallen in love and have become engaged. At home, Bazarov cannot keep his mind on his work and while performing an autopsy fails to take the proper precautions. He cuts himself and contracts blood poisoning. On his deathbed, he sends for Madame Odintsova, who arrives just in time to hear Bazarov tell her how beautiful she is. She kisses him on the forehead and leaves. Bazarov dies from his illness the following day. Arkady marries Katya and takes over the management of his father's estate. His father marries Fenichka and is delighted to have his son home with him. Pavel leaves the country and lives the rest of his life as a noble in Dresden, Germany. Major characters: Yevgeny Vasilevich Bazarov, a nihilist and medical student. As a nihilist he is a mentor to Arkady, and a challenger to the liberal ideas of the Kirsanov brothers and the traditional Russian Orthodox feelings of his own parents. Arkady Nikolaevich Kirsanov, a recent graduate of St. Petersburg University and friend of Bazarov. He is also a nihilist, although his nihilism has a lot to do with Bazarov's influence. Nikolai Petrovich Kirsanov, a landlord, a liberal Democrat. Arkady's father, Pavel Petrovich Kirsanov, Nikolai's brother and a bourgeois with aristocratic pretensions who prides himself on his refinement but, like his brother, is reform-minded. Although he is reluctantly tolerant of the nihilism, he cannot help hating Bazarov. Vasily Ivanovich Bazarov, Bazarov's father, a retired army surgeon, and a small countryside land serf holder. Educated and enlightened, he nonetheless feels, like many of the characters, that rural isolation has left him out of touch with modern ideas. He thus retains a loyalty to traditionalist ways, manifested particularly in devotion to God and to his son Yevgeny. Irina Vlasarovna Bazarova, Bazarov's mother, a very traditional woman of the 15th century Muscovy-style aristocracy, a pious follower of Orthodox Christianity, woven with folk tales and falsehoods. She loves her son deeply, but is also terrified of him and his rejection of all beliefs. Anna Sergeyevna Odintsova, a wealthy widow who entertains the nihilist friends at her estate. Katerina Sergeyevna Lokhteva, the younger sister of Anna. She lives comfortably with her sister but lacks confidence, finding it hard to escape Anna Sergeyevna's shadow. This shyness makes her and Arkady's love slow to realize itself. Feodosia Nikolaevna, the daughter of Nikolai's late housekeeper, with whom he has fallen in love and fathered a child out of wedlock. The implied obstacles to the marriage are difference in class and perhaps Nikolai's previous marriage, the burden of traditionalist values. Viktor Sitnikov, a pompous and foolhardy friend of Bazarov who joins populist ideals and groups. Like Arkady, he is heavily influenced by Bazarov in his ideals. Evdotia Nikitishna Kukshina, an emancipated woman who lives in the town of X. Kukshina is independent but rather eccentric and incapable as a proto-feminist, despite her potential. Adaptations. Canadian playwright George F. Walker's 1988 play Nothing Sacred is a stage adaptation of Fathers and Sons. Irish playwright Brian Friel has also adapted a novel under the same title.